Today we will be listening to some truly captivating Christian testimonies about marriage and love, that will not only inspire you, but will change the way you view the Lord. If this is your first time with us, don't subscribe yet, we will earn your subscription by the end of the video. Please keep an open mind and study the word if questions arise. Mark chapter 16 verse 15. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every nation. So now, sit back, relax and meditate, as we share these testimonies.
We knew each other for so many years as great friends. I mean, we spent a lot of time together growing up. And when we began to date and when we got married, that friendship continued. And we just loved doing things with each other, and we preferred one another, and we hardly ever fought.
Chris McCain and his wife Colleen were high school sweethearts. After 20 years, their picture-perfect marriage began to fall apart after they experienced a series of losses.
Chris had some job changes. My father died and his mom died. Our children started moving out of the house, which really changes the dynamics, and the way that we were relating to each other was changing too.
So a lot of things in my life that I had control of were slipping away. And I had noticed a change in my heart as that was happening, that my heart was getting hard. We began to have arguments now, and we began to fight, and we weren't used to that. We didn't know how to fight.
He and I both had always wanted to keep Christ in the center of our marriage. And during that time, I knew that there was a divide between us, but I really never dreamt that there was anyone else that was coming into the picture.
But someone did. Chris had begun an affair that lasted several months.
What started out as innocent, which was completely wrong, developed into more. And just having someone listen to me and understand me rather than someone who was fighting with me.
Ashamed of what he had done, Chris confessed to Colleen.
I really was shocked that that was happening, but then he confessed. He said it was over, let's move forward. Though there was a lot of pain and a lot of back and forth for quite some time of trying to get through that, we just sort of made a decision that we did want to stay together.
The McCains decided not to tell anyone or seek out help after Chris's affair.
Basically, our pride prevented us from wanting to admit to anyone. You know, we've had the storybook marriage for so long, and everybody thought we were the poster children of marriage. And to confess that our marriage was terrible, our pride wouldn't allow us to do that, to reach out.
They stayed together, but Chris's heart remained unchanged.
A hard heart is fertile ground for Satan. I had just completely been taken over with just being self-absorbed and pleasing self. Just needing to control things, to be in control of my situations, because that's the way I'd always been. I wasn't going to be controlled by my wife. I wasn't going to be told what to do. And I didn't want the Lord telling me what to do either, how to behave.
4 years later, Chris and Colleen met with their pastor in his office one Sunday after church. There, Chris confessed to more affairs.
I just let out a lot of anger. In my mind, in my heart, at this point, I'm done.
After I confessed to my children and they watched me pack my bags and walk out of the house, that was the hardest thing I've ever been through. That was when I became completely broken.
Chris moved into a hotel and for the first time in years began to seek the Lord. He studied the Word, fasted and prayed, and invited other men to pray with him.
The previous times that we had dealt with my affairs, I had confessed. I don't know that I had truly repented. When I confessed after the fourth one, that was when I came clean on everything, and was not trying to be deceitful or hide anything anymore after that.
Colleen began to see changes in Chris and received encouragement from Scripture.
There was one morning, a Sunday morning, I was reading my Bible, and the Lord showed me a verse in 1 Samuel, and it says, "Watch and see what the Lord is going to do. Watch and see this great thing I'm about to do before your eyes." Up until that time, I had started giving up on our marriage.
During their marriage, Chris seldom wore his wedding ring because of the nature of his work. While they were separated, he told Colleen the Lord had impressed upon him to buy a new ring.
When he told me that he got a ring, I knew that something was happening, and this was probably the first thing that I thought God was showing me. Watch and see these great things that I'm about to do before your eyes, because the ring was something that bothered me and I hadn't told him. I knew that something was going on, and I texted back and I said, "You're walking back to me," because I knew that God was in it. And if God was in it and I could trust God, then I was all on board.
The McCains spent months in counseling, and God began to heal their marriage. It's been 5 years since they reunited, and they say their marriage is stronger than ever.
One of the things that the Lord had changed in me was being willing to give up control and to prefer my wife and my family and to put the Lord first rather than for me to control all of that, because His ways are better than mine.
He has blessed us in such a tremendous way that now I have a brand new husband. I didn't have to get married again to have a new husband because God changed him completely from the inside out. And we just share so much more freely, so much more deeply. It's a really sweet place to be this close.
Our marriage today is incredible. When someone shows you as much grace as Colleen has showed me, my love for her is exponential. When you experience God's grace in the way that we did, He's the one that's made our marriage great, not us. All we've done is just sell out to Him and give Him our marriage and our family and our home and say, "Lord, you just take our marriage and do with it what you need to do."
Brian and Alicia have been married for more than 20 years. They met as teenagers and fell in love fast after their paths crossed at a grocery store.
He jokingly says I was stalking him. But he was in the grocery, stalking, and me and my mother, my sisters, we saw him. We thought he was just super cute.
I knew the first time I seen her that she was definitely the one.
We dated about 6 months, and then 9 months after that, we were married on April 12th, 1997.
They spent the first couple years getting to know each other better, but eventually their time together lessened and tension was building between them.
I had just started nursing school, so I was gone all day. And, Brian worked second shifts. And then when we would connect on the weekends, it was arguing about, I think it was a lack of intimacy, the lack of time together.
We both wanted what we wanted, and we wasn't willing to give, and I think that's where things really start spiraling downward.
Meanwhile, their family was growing, but their arguments escalated and would often lead to Brian leaving home for weeks, even months at a time. Brian became a successful contractor and prided himself in being a provider, but he filled a void he felt with familiar vices. He found the attention he was looking for in other women.
Deep down, I knew what was going on, but I was still trying to be a somewhat good husband, if that makes sense, and provide and keep things at home intact. I was hiding the alcohol in my truck, hiding my phone in my truck in the evenings, in case somebody would call or reach out to me so she would know, and hiding. I'd go home at night, take showers, get out of the shower, but still felt dirty. I knew right and wrong. I just couldn't get free from the things of the world, no matter how hard I tried.
Several years had passed, and Alicia had given birth to their second child when Brian's secrets came to light.
I remember waking up one morning at 6 a.m. to the phone ringing. At that moment, my world shattered. Never in my mind would have ever thought that my husband would be cheating on me.
Alicia forgave him and agreed to work on their relationship. But later, when the infidelities continued, Alicia finally reached her breaking point and filed for divorce. Feeling rejected and hopeless, she attempted suicide.
After the fourth affair, I had given up all hope. I had filed for divorce. I had been on an antidepressant for about 3 years, and I decided that I was going to overdose on those pills. And so when Brian came to get the kids one day, I'd asked him if he would pick up my prescription. It was a full 3 months. And so when he brought them back, took the children and left, I was going to take them all. And when I opened the bottle, there was only 3 pills inside. And so when I contacted Brian to find out where the rest of them was, there should have been hundreds, he said that the pharmacy they couldn't account for them. They were just gone. At my lowest moment was when God stepped in and saved my life. When I asked God, what to do about Brian, and so lovingly, he just asked me, would you give him one more chance?
As Alicia began to let God heal her heart, Brian was facing the man he had become.
I had tried to commit suicide myself down at my grandfather's farm. I had, taken a gun and put it underneath my chin and pulled the trigger, and, of course it didn't go off. I remember God telling me, this is your last chance, and knew that I had to change as a dad and a husband. And that was a big turning point for me.
Broken and desperate, he surrendered his heart to God. Brian moved back into their home. Together, they participated in couples counseling and committed to keeping God first in their marriage while they rebuilt their communication and trust.
Got rid of my worldly friends. I'd made a promise to myself that I would never get in a truck and leave like I had so many times in the past. I would go outside and sit and just pray. It brought me to a really strong relationship with him, which in turn turned into a strong relationship with Alicia and the kids.
When we incorporated God back in, when we invited him back in, when we repented for removing him, he just started to rebuild our marriage and our love for one another.
Brian and Alicia say their love for each other is stronger than ever, and it's all because they learned to love each other as Christ loves them.
Where it is today, it's almost like trying to imagine heaven. As much as we can imagine, as good as it'd be, we'll still be blown away on the day we get there. And I feel the same way with our marriage. Today, what it is, we're best friends. We love spending time with each other. And I couldn't imagine waking up a day without her by my side or ending a day without her by my side.
Herman and April Moncrief were high school sweethearts. After 10 years of dating, they said, I do. Both were Christians and had high expectations for their marriage.
Our dating life was such a fairy tale. I just thought it was going to be this beautiful 50-year event.
The first, I would say, 4 or 5 years, man, it was still like we were on courtship. We were still dating.
5 years into their marriage, April was ready for kids. But Herman was reluctant. When they did get pregnant, they were shocked to find out they were having twins.
And I remember the doctor saying, I see 2 heartbeats, and normally people would be excited. And I was, but I called him at work to tell him, and it was silent. He was totally silent, because we're planners. It really just threw us for a loop. We planned the pregnancy, but we didn't plan 2 babies.
Their children, Asia and Bryce, were born in March of 2005. Immediately, the pressure of being new parents created tension.
I was mama, he was daddy. Those were our roles, not wife, not husband.
We kind of forgot about each other. And so we just focused on the children.
Herman found his escape through work.
Usually, if things are not going right, or if I just want to get away, there was always something to do. So I just go to work. So I'd work Saturdays, I'd work Sunday afternoons.
Resentful of Herman's work schedule, April lashed out verbally and fought for control in the marriage.
As soon as he hit the door, I was like, get a baby, I'm tired, I need help, I need this. I wouldn't let him rest, he couldn't relax. So our household at that time was really just, it was like walking on eggshells for both of us.
We were not talking or we were bickering. It was like those two extremes, and that was really it. I think at a certain point, I became one of these guys that's just really numb, right? So whatever you say, it didn't matter. Most times I wasn't even listening.
April repeatedly threatened Herman with divorce.
But I think part of me probably did want the divorce, but I didn't. And in my heart of hearts, I didn't. I kind of wanted to scare him into, you know, the ultimatum. And after the 50th time, I was just really trying to get his attention.
Herman eventually reached his breaking point.
You know, consistently, you know, twice a week, 3 times a week, you know, I want a divorce, I want out, I'm tired, I want a divorce. I was just to the point where, you know, hey, this is what you want, this is what I'm gonna give you.
Not for one second, I didn't think that we would end up divorced. I should have, but not for one second did I think so. When he said, okay, I'll give you what you want, I'm done. You know, the pride in me was like, fine, but inside I was screaming like, no, I don't want this.
I didn't take the time to, you know, to really pray about it. I didn't take the time to, you know, consult God and understand, you know, what's his role in this whole situation. And I was just like, nope, I'm not doing any counseling, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm just signing.
In 2006, the divorce was final. Reality hit for Herman when April moved 2 hours away to be closer to family.
That's when I felt a huge sense of loss. When you're basically in a place of solitude and you've got a lot of time to think, you know, a lot of late nights, and I mean, there's no one around but you. I mean, you have a lot of time to think. I mean, you have a lot of time to pray, and you get a level of clarity. I think that's unmatched.
I remember specifically stuffing covers or sheets underneath their door, and because I would go into my room and cry so loud. I cried in that house probably for the first month.
Herman drove to see the children almost every weekend, and during his visits, Herman and April spent time alone again.
The kids were away. I knew they were safe. They were with my parents. I didn't worry about them, so now I could focus on this, and he could focus on me. And so we started to kind of rekindle the magic that was gone when the babies came out.
I don't think I ever stopped loving her, I'm saying. And I can say that honestly. And that's when I really said, okay, Lord, what do you want? What do I need to do here? What do you want me to do?
After almost 9 months, Herman and April decided to give their marriage a second chance. They saw a Christian counselor and prayed together regularly.
I think it was a tough road back because we both had to basically humble ourselves. It was very candid, it was very open, it was very healing.
Herman and April completed their counseling just a month before their original anniversary date. So on October 6th, 2007, they remarried.
I will tell people that second time was just the most magnificent thing ever because God was truly there. Like Jesus was, I felt it, we felt it.
To stand up there and be able to, you know, once again recite your vows in front of the Lord and in front of the people that we care the most about. It was a moving experience, you know, to go from such a dark place to such a, you know, place of joy and jubilation.
Today, the Moncriefs want other couples to know the hope they found in their darkest hour.
Like, you can't go through what we've been through and not acknowledge him, that he healed and restored. Jesus did a miraculous thing for us, and he can do it for anybody.
Stop trying to change it yourself. I would say have some faith in Jesus Christ. Take the time to commune with him. Take the time to, you know, commune together in Christ with your mate and pray without ceasing. And he will move it, he will change it. And if you believe and you have faith, he will.
We were very much in love. He asked me 3 weeks after we met if I would marry him, and I said yes.
We dreamed of serving God together. We had a dream of having some sort of worldwide music ministry.
Pat and Gail Hadley had high hopes when they married, but the daily responsibilities of work and family soon took a toll.
The dreams that I had of traveling the world together and, you know, singing for the Lord, none of those had happened. I think I took all that disappointment, all that hurt, and I turned it towards Pat in a way because I connected him with those lost dreams.
I wasn't really aware of how bad things really were. So I just got to a point where I thought, well, this is as good as it gets. This is just the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. This is normal marriage.
I started focusing on the children, and my relationship with my husband became more of a business partnership.
Pat pastored a church in Alaska, and Gail served as the worship leader. But as their ministry responsibilities increased, so did the tension at home.
I always felt pressured to have a perfect marriage as a pastor. You're an example. When marriages fail for pastors, it's, you got to find a new career.
Pat and I couldn't even be in the same room together. Without arguing, there was constant arguing, fighting over things.
I was living downstairs, she was living upstairs. We'd meet together in the kitchen, talk about things that we needed to talk about, and then go about our lives.
For 23 years, Pat and Gail went through the motions. But after a blow-up on the day their daughter left for college, Gail told Pat she'd had enough.
Everything I did was either for my children or for my husband or for the church. I felt like I was gone, like there was no me anymore. I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to be married. I didn't want to be a pastor's wife anymore. That I was just done.
That was the lowest moment because I never stopped loving my wife. I didn't want my marriage to end. I didn't want my family to suffer divorce. And I heard God's voice. And he said to me, "Come to me and I will heal you." And at one point I said, "Heal me? I don't need to be healed. I need you to heal her."
Pat heeded God's voice, and in an attempt to find his own healing, met with a local Christian counselor and author, Art Mathias, and began reading his book, Biblical Foundations of Freedom.
In that book, I learned that I needed to forgive. That if I was going to be obedient to Jesus and obedient to God, I had to learn how to really forgive people from my heart. Not only my wife, but everyone in my life that had hurt me. I began to pray for her. And I had never really done that in my marriage because as long as I was bitter, I wasn't going to pray for her because the bitterness was blocking it. So I started praying prayers that had a little bit more authority of heaven behind them. In the name of Jesus, Satan, you cannot have my family. You cannot have my wife. You need to get out of here and leave her alone. Some nights I went into our bedroom. I laid down on the floor by the bed and I prayed. I prayed silently so she couldn't hear me, but God could hear me.
It didn't take long for Gail to notice there was something different about Pat.
He wasn't even fun to argue with anymore because I couldn't get him to argue with me. So I asked him, I'm like, what have you been doing? Because you're different. You're giving me lots of space, which is good. I needed that, but you're different. What's going on?
And I talked to her about forgiveness. And I said, I have a lot of things to fix in me. And it's not about you. It's me. And God needs to fix some things in me. And so I'm going to do that. I had been trying to fix things by my might and my power. And I was learning how to fix things by His Spirit. That's the only thing that worked.
Gail began to seek God on her own and to try to understand forgiveness in a new light.
These things that I had been holding on to for years, all these things that had happened to me, I had the wrong focus of what was wrong. And I thought Pat was the enemy and that, people in the church were the enemy and even my family. I had seen them in a wrong way and that they were not the enemy and that I could forgive. And I just started feeling joy again. And it was such an amazing thing to feel this warmth and this love and this joy that I hadn't felt for years. Hope was springing up in me that my marriage could be saved.
She was becoming a new person, and I watched it. And I was like, this is what I've been praying for. Now God was showing up and reworking her and me. And it was beautiful. These were things that were new to us. So what we're really learning is we're learning how to take the teachings in the Bible and make them real in our lives.
Today, Pat and Gail say their marriage has never been stronger.
I never knew that it could be this good. I never knew that this is what life could be like, being married. She's my best friend, and she's my partner, and we face life together, and it's awesome.
He's the first one that when something happens to me, I want to share it with him, and I have hope for our future together. Well, I am so thankful that God showed me showed us the way of life, and showed us how to live life together.
We were living a team environment as a bunch of commandos. You work hard, you play hard.
Having survived 5 combat tours in Afghanistan, Ricky Harris believes his team weren't the only ones who had his back.
Times when things were blowing up around me and bullets passing by so close that, you know, they're grazing the fabric of your uniform, but I always felt protected. I always felt like the hand of God was on me.
It also helped to know he had the faithful prayers of his wife, Kay.
I always prayed for Ricky. Always. Always for protection. Always for guidance.
Despite his reliance on God's divine protection, Ricky's own faith ran between hot and cold. Because like those around him, he lived life on the edge, both on and off the battlefield.
There's always one hand on the throttle, and if you got an empty hand, it's on the bottle. You know, I was one of those guys who would live a week without even thinking about Christ or my salvation, and then something would happen, you lose a buddy or something happens in your life, and it kind of makes you fall back and think, yeah, you're not doing the right things, but you are what you are. You accept the fact that, hey, you're a backslider. That's just who you are.
And being away from his wife 10 months out of the year, it became too easy to do what he knew in his heart wasn't right.
I'll be completely honest. I was unfaithful to my wife on 3 separate occasions. Far be it from being justified, but I never went out intending to do those kind of things. Alcohol was always involved. I was always in a place where I shouldn't have been. I was always with people that weren't looking out for my best interest. I suppressed the guilt. I suppressed sometimes the fact that it even happened. This could be something that ends my marriage and destroys it. I definitely didn't want that. I loved my wife. I love my wife.
Kay had her suspicions, but didn't know for certain until they were confirmed one day through a mutual acquaintance. At the time, Ricky was on his 4th deployment to Afghanistan.
At first, I felt abandoned by God because I had prayed so long for a certain subject that seemed to he never heard me.
Even though Kay still loved her husband and didn't consider divorce an option, she was deeply wounded.
That was something I was struggling with, the hurt, the resentment towards him, things that, you know, he had done in the past. I had started to become bitter.
Meanwhile, Ricky could no longer suppress the guilt that kept rising to the surface.
I don't want to die with any questions or any doubts between me and my wife. I want to be able to look at my wife and say, there's nothing that you don't know about.
When Ricky got home, confessing to his wife didn't come so easily. In the church one Sunday, he finally realized that the only thing standing between his relationship with Kay and God was himself.
The theme of the message was skeletons in your closet. I was convicted. I realized that at that point in time, I guess, I decided that this is what I want more than anything. More than being the best sniper or being, you know, the best Green Beret or being at the top of my game in my community. Right now, what's most important to me is being a child of God. And so I'm not going to grow unless I get rid of this garbage that is inside.
That afternoon, Ricky told Kay everything, and expected the worst.
If the offense is so bad that you can't forgive, then I understand if you want to, go your own way, or, if you want the marriage to dissolve. I don't want that to happen. I love you, and I'm in love with you, and I want, our marriage to be a godly marriage, and I want to continue to walk out the rest of my days this way. But yeah, it was tough.
I was feeling pretty lonely. It took a while to recover from that, and definitely prayer was definitely involved.
Christ restored my marriage, restored my faith in myself.
Well, it won't just for Ricky that he heard him. He heard me. He healed my hurt, and I suffered a lot from hurt.
By the time Ricky deployed again in 2010, he was grounded in his faith and depended on God not only for his protection, but for his peace and guidance. Today, he's retired and grateful for the work God did in his marriage and his life.
My heart's filled now. It was just kind of like that rededication when it happened. It was kind of like being born again, being saved all over again.
I just believe he made us strong. I think God sailed us right through it.
What Christ went through to buy that sin and to give me the ability to, not have to deal with that stuff in my life was just incredible. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what Jesus did on the cross.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Help us help spread the word of God. Much love.